On the Go Media proudly presents Between the Ropes with your hosts, Colt Powers and Hunter Dietz.
Welcome back to Between the Ropes. My name is Hunter Dietz, and alongside me, longtime veteran, I guess we could say, independent wrestler, James Jeffries. James, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Hunter. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this Hall of Fame weekend, and what we've been talking about the last few episodes has been kind of promoting the softball game and promoting the banquet, and it's going to be a fun time. But there's also going to be a show that weekend, right? IPW's 25th anniversary. You have quite the history with IPW, don't you?
Yeah, I've been with IPW, Impact Pro Wrestling, since 2007.
Yeah.
And, they were founded in the year 2000. Troy Peterson and Travis Shillington are the founders. So we're pretty fired up for this 25th anniversary. It should be a real blast. And yeah, it's been a great place to call home for, 19 years since 2007.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's been a blast. So it's been an honor. I've been a couple times their heavyweight champion, tag champion, and extreme champion. So
I want to ask a little bit about some of those, but first, you said 2007 you started with IPW. Was that your wrestling debut as well, or had you worked in some other promotions before you started with IPW?
Yeah, that was my wrestling debut as well. Wow. It was 2007.
Wow. And so you get started, and I did a little bit of looking into some of your matches on Cage Match. I was looking through some of your old matches, and like you said, you've held a lot of titles for IPW. You've been their heavyweight champion. You've been tag champion. The Extreme Championship, I'm a little interested in. We don't hear about a lot of Extreme Champion. Tell us a little bit about when you became the IPW Extreme Champion.
It was awesome. I was a bad guy back then, and had some help winning the Extreme title, but it was a no rules, hardcore style of a championship. So I want to say it was around from the early 2000s, and I believe it was until about 2011.
Yeah. Wow. And you were not only the Extreme Champion, like we mentioned, you were also the heavyweight champion. When you were coming into the wrestling business, I'm sure you started off as a wrestling fan as a kid. When you came into the wrestling business, did you ever think that you were going to be the world champion of anything?
No, absolutely not. I'm a little undersized, to be world champion, but I was certainly very honored, to get to wrestle for a world heavyweight championship. So just, I watched it growing up with my dad, and was just always a fan. We'd watch it together, and would have never guessed it'd been world heavyweight champion. So it was a huge honor, and definitely a dream come true.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and when you're talking about growing up and you're a pro wrestling fan, who were some of your guys back in the day when you were a kid, you're watching wrestling and you're getting ready to become the James Jeffries that we know today?
So my earliest memories of wrestling are from, Hulk Hogan, Jimmy Snuka, the Texas Tornado, Ultimate Warrior, kind of the golden age of wrestling. But that wasn't really my most memorable years. I remember it kind of vaguely from that time frame, but kind of the Attitude Era and Stone Cold and The Rock and Mankind, those guys were a big deal at the time. So I had a lot of enjoyment watching them growing up. And then, kind of fast forward to high school, the Ruthless Aggression Era, I believe it was called. It was Shawn Michaels came back, and Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, Rey Mysterio coming in. Just, there was so many people that just really inspired me to want to do it.
Well, and so if you're thinking about, let's say, top three, and influences for you when it comes to your in-ring work and your character and how you translate what you saw as a kid to becoming a wrestler today. Because a lot of us, myself included, and people watching, we're fans of wrestling, but the connection's not there. So who were your influences, and then kind of how did that help you become a successful professional wrestler?
You know, the biggest influence for me was Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich, and the Ultimate Warrior, I would say, is another one, and then Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig. So I would say, you know, kind of the 80s. I guess I always wanted people to look at my wrestling as kind of a throwback,
sure,
you know, from what I wear to the style I wrestle. So, yeah, I'd say those three are probably the ones that really, I was like, man, I really want to be like those guys.
So, Intercontinental Champion in the making, it sounds like. When you were getting started in wrestling, you started with IPW, obviously, and you've worked a lot of matches, especially all over the state of Iowa. Is there a time frame that stands out to you as the peak of James Jeffries, or are we looking at the peak right now?
I'd say the peak for me was like 2016, 2017, you know, in that area. I just thought, you know, that I was probably doing the best in those years. Now I've just kind of found a happy place in wrestling. You know, like I still enjoy it. I still get to go out there and perform as much as I can, and I'm still really enjoying it. You know, I mean, 19 years in wrestling. You know, 19 years later, and I still enjoy it as much today as I did when I started. So yeah, I definitely say those were kind of the peak years for me, and you know, now I'm just really enjoying it, enjoying every chance I get. So
for sure. And we've been talking about the Hall of Fame, obviously, that weekend. You are in maybe the biggest match Waterloo has seen in a very long time, when you are going to challenge for the NWA Worlds Heavyweight Championship, and I'll get that graphic on screen now. Tell us a little bit, how does this come about that here you are, you know, from in 2007 starting out in wrestling to now in the birthplace of the NWA, you get a chance to bring that title home?
Yeah, I'm very excited. You know, it's crazy to me that they asked me to wrestle in that match against, you know, the Thrillbilly Silas Mason. And I think the crazy thing about it too is like, hey, I remember watching the Iron Claw when it came out a couple years ago, and Silas was Terry Gordy, and you know, the Von Erichs. I loved their wrestling, and I loved world class wrestling, and you know, obviously the NWA was a huge part of world class wrestling. So I'm very honored to wrestle for the NWA World Title. I never thought I'd ever get a chance to wrestle for it. And all the names that have held that title and have wrestled for that title, I just have a ton of respect for all of them as athletes. And I never thought it would happen, let alone here in Waterloo, where the NWA was formed. So I'm very excited and very honored.
Well, and we can understand why, but you look around where we're at here at the Hall of Fame in Waterloo, and we see Lou Thez on the wall, and we see all of these guys who held the NWA championship, and it's almost like you're sitting looking at you know, what was and what is. And so when you get to sit in a place like this, especially the pro wing of the Hall of Fame, do you almost have like kind of that ghostly feeling of like the walls are talking to you when you come in here?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I could see Jack Briscoe, former NWA World Heavyweight Champion, over here on the wall next to his brother Jerry. And, you know, it's just really, there's definitely a vibe that this building gives off of all the wrestlers and all the history. And it's just cool. I think the Dan Gable Museum and the Tragos Thez Hall of Fame, I think it's just a perfect combo of the past meets the present and kind of coming together to celebrate wrestling, which I think all generations of wrestlers now, in the past, and to come. I think it's a great place for all of us to celebrate it.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't argue with that at all. And when you get to go to the other side of the museum and you're looking at the amateur stuff, then you come across a guy like, Kurt Angle, who, could be all over this place. Did you have any amateur wrestling background before you got started in pro wrestling?
I did. My dad used to take me and my two brothers, Solomon and Keith, to wrestling tournaments. So I wrestled in high school and wrestled in, elementary school. So the things that we would do in amateur wrestling, the roles, and I was talking to Coach about this earlier, the roles and the technique and the conditioning, it kind of took that from amateur wrestling and applied it to pro wrestling. And I think, just the amateur side of the museum and the pro side being in the same building, I think definitely being involved in amateur wrestling helps you learn pro wrestling, because you learn how your body can move and how to, the different technique and the discipline and the camaraderie. So I think it's a good mesh.
Absolutely. I kind of want to get into fantasy land here for a minute with you and kind of dream about what could be. Yeah. Is there any opponent, living or dead, if you had the chance to share the ring with them, no questions asked, is there a scenario you put yourself in of, this is the moment I would want with this guy?
Man, I'd love to wrestle Mr. Perfect Curt Hennig. Yeah. He's one that I think of. Also, too, it would have been really cool to be Kerry Von Erich's partner against the Briscoes in a tag match, just something like that. I think that'd have been a real honor to be in the ring with those guys. So those are a couple that come to mind.
Well, and they were just making up Von Erichs at the end there, so you could have fit in easily. Couldn't have been an issue.
I don't know. They were way bigger than I am. So.
Well, that would be great, and I'm sure that's something everybody would have loved to see. James Von Erich. That would have been great. Kind of an interesting thought when we talk to these wrestlers, especially who've done smaller shows. I'm just kind of curious. What is the smallest crowd that you've worked in front of in your entire career?
Oh, smallest, probably like 70 people or something. And it was like 70 people in a snowstorm in northern Minneapolis.
Yeah.
It was so crazy because people were riding their snowmobiles. And in this particular show they had, I want to say it was like 2008 or something. It was one of the first shows I ever participated in. But they closed Interstate 35. So people were coming to the matches on their snowmobile.
Oh my goodness.
And it was so cold, but yeah, I'd say like 70 people. It was in a bar up there in Minneapolis.
Well, and so the reason that I ask that and I bring that up is a couple weeks ago we talked to a micro wrestler named Starla Love, and we asked her the same question, and she said that she had wrestled in front of a crowd of 2. And I said, "Whoa, that's a pretty small crowd. How does that change your mentality?" And she said, "You can't let it change your mentality." Do you have the same thought that whether it's 70 people or 70,000, it doesn't really matter how many people you're in front of? You got to go out there and put on the same show.
Absolutely, those same 70 people, 2 people, what have you, they paid their money. And they, anybody that comes to a wrestling show, no matter how many or how little of a crowd it is, it's like they paid to be entertained. And it's fun for us as wrestlers too to go out and entertain. So you just, it's really awesome. It makes you almost want to work harder for a smaller crowd because they came out to watch you, and sometimes weather or just day, time of day, what have you, isn't in your favor, but it's saying, they want to be entertained, and it's your job, and I think it's your passion too to want to entertain them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's a great reason to get into this business, is for the purpose of entertaining the fans. And I'm curious to know, you said that you got into the business in 2007, and what does that transition kind of look like from I've never wrestled before to now I'm having my first match? I mean, is there I'm sure there's some sort of workout change. There's maybe something with lifestyle. I don't know. What does the change look like to become a professional wrestler?
I tell you, for me, just the transition. I came to this event as a fan, and Harley Race was running the show at the time, and I met my trainer, Travis Shillington, TS Aggressor, at the show. And he said, hey, come up to Algona and check out our school. And, at the time I was jogging twice a day, still pushing weights and stuff. And I was so frustrated. I'm like, man, why am I not putting on weight? And he's like, stop running twice a day. But I was so used to jogging and stuff from amateur wrestling and being at a lower weight, and just really just kind of maintaining the working out and stuff was the transition into pro wrestling, because I knew that when you started wrestling, it's like, okay, I know what the amateur side of wrestling looks like, and you have to put the same amount into the pro wrestling side of just being in condition and lifting weights and everything. So it was just kind of making sure you stayed in shape, because when you went to class every Saturday, and sometimes we'd work out on Sundays too, you had to be in condition I didn't know what was awaiting in pro wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you had to be in shape in order to tackle whatever was in class or whatever was on the docket for training that day. So.
Yeah. Well, and then too, sometimes we see professional wrestlers. You got to be able to lift your opponent up, and not only that, sometimes these are big guys, so you've got to have some raw strength there as well. Was that something that you had already developed as an amateur wrestler? Was some of that strength? I'm sure there's more, because in amateur wrestling you're not lifting guys straight up, but was there that change as well?
Yeah, it was just, you had some kind of education to it, because, hey, in amateur wrestling, you're picking guys up and taking them down to the mat. So, and like you said, hey, a lot of these guys are bigger guys, and I could not pick them up. So I had to learn a way to wrestle, with like some of the high-flying moves and different things. You had to learn a way to be competitive against the bigger guys, because there was no weight classes. I wasn't going to be picking guys up and slamming them or power bombing them or what have you. So you had to really learn your style to be competitive.
Yeah, and you mentioned also Harley Race being here at the Hall of Fame event. That's actually my earliest wrestling memory. Was I was here and I met Harley Race, and at the time, I would have been 3 or 4. It's a long time ago. But I don't remember much about him other than I shook his hand because my dad told me to, and it was as calloused as could be. And he looked down and he goes, "How are you doing, young fella?" And I'm like, oh, this guy's scary. And it wasn't until years later I appreciated that, but it's just interesting that that's also, one of your memories, that intersection, because from all accounts, Harley was just such a great guy. He was, and there's kind of a crazy tie-in for me is I went to Harley's school to check out. So Baron Von Raschke I met at an indie show, just watching, going as a fan, and I'm still a fan, but I went up and it was in Rochester. So Baron was kind of my foot in the door to wrestling. He sent me down to Harley Race's school, and I wasn't big enough for Harley's school at the time. But Harley was super nice, just like you're saying. Super tough and strong in the ring, but he was so nice behind the scenes, And so I went down to Harley's school. He said, hey, keep working out, and come see me when you're 170 pounds. I was about 120 pounds at the time. And so Harley
would run shows there in Missouri. And then I ended up coming up to the show here in Waterloo. Well, he was renting Travis's ring, and Travis, TS Aggressor, wrestled for Harley.
Oh.
So it all kind of ties in
Yeah.
for me, and then Travis invited me to the school,
Sure.
you know, to check it out. So it was cool to be around Harley, and I got to, when I first started wrestling, I got to sit with him and take money while he was selling his books and taking pictures and stuff. So he was such a nice guy, but man, he was, you know, you talk about his handshake and everything. You could tell he was as tough as they come.
That's for sure. That's definitely for sure. When you were wrestling a lot more, I know now maybe you're not doing quite as many dates as you were before. When you were wrestling a lot more, though, were there multiple other promotions that you were working for, or have you kind of been an IPW guy the whole time?
I'd say generally an IPW guy. That's been my home. But there's other promotions I've worked for. I've worked for Absolute Pro Wrestling, wrestled for Madhouse Wrestling, wrestled down in Texas for SW Fury, which James Beard, referee, was. He brought me down to do some shows for them. Sure. Wrestled out in Vegas a few times for Cauliflower Alley Club. Nice. And Vendetta Pro Wrestling out there. Minneapolis for MIW Wrestling, MAW, Steel Domain Wrestling. So, you know, mostly a lot of places here. Oh, and SICW, Southern Illinois Championship Wrestling. Wrestled for them many times. You know, Herb Simmons and them guys have a great group down there. We're going down to Fan Fest next week to watch the matches and stuff. And you kind of network and meet various promoters and other wrestlers that way. But wrestle for a few places.
Well, and that's great to hear. Not only that you've wrestled for a lot of places, but also that you can call IPW your home. Yeah. I feel like with a lot of independent wrestlers we talk to, it's just constantly bouncing around, and it's kind of hard to not have a place that they can always go back to. So for you to kind of be a face of IPW, I'm sure that's great for you. And then for all of this to culminate with the 25th anniversary show right here in Waterloo, challenging for the world's title. I do want to ask, Thrillbilly might be watching this video right now. I'm going to hand you the mic. Is there anything you want to say to him?
Yeah, Thrillbilly, on July 11th, I got the biggest opportunity of my life to wrestle for the NWA Worlds Heavyweight Championship. And I know you are the champion. You are as tough as they come, and I've been watching your matches, and I've been studying, I've been working out in the gym, and I'm pumped, and I'm ready to wrestle, and I'm going to give you everything that I have. And it's an honor to step in the ring with you. I know you're no joke as far as a wrestler, and your accolades speak for themselves, and I'm just going to try and give it my very best. So I'm excited to get in the ring against you, and I'm just going to give you everything I have.
Strong words from a strong man. We'll see if Thrillbilly can handle the pressure. July 11th. That's going to be quite the evening.
He's tough, man.
It certainly will be a challenge. Before we wrap up here, though, I do want to ask you, when you are looking forward towards the future of wrestling, and you're looking at the independent wrestling scene right now, are there any guys that you really like to get in the ring with, and any promising people that maybe us wrestling fans should have our eye on?
Oh, man. I mean, the Thrillbilly's one of them. He's doing a lot of good stuff in the NWA right now. Man, I'd love to get in there against Nick Nemeth. He'd probably run circles around me, but I'd love to wrestle against him someday. Goodness. Those two in particular that come to mind. There's
just so many that you've been around, and obviously being a wrestling fan, how do you narrow it down? Kind of an impossible question. But there was one other thing I was going to ask you, and the Hall of Fame inductees going in this year. Nick Nemeth, you mentioned. That's what triggered it for me. Jeff Jarrett, James Beard, who you mentioned. You look at this class, this feels like a really good class this year, don't you think?
I think it's a great class. You know, you mentioned a few guys. You know, I'd like to add Rodney Mack and Jazz getting the Vern Gagne Trainers Award. Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin will be here. I just think that whole weekend, you know, starting from the Thursday, you know, we got the Thursday social, kind of the events kickoff. Going into Friday's the induction ceremony. I'm looking forward to so many of the speeches, and I'm looking forward to Saturday with the, you know, the Impact Pro Wrestling show and the lifetime members banquet that's named after my father, Terry Jeffries. You know, huge thanks to the museum for naming it after my dad. And you know, IPW's 25th year. My dad came to a lot of the matches to watch me wrestle, and I really think the entire weekend, you know, you got Beers for the Boys with JBL, and I just think the entire weekend as a wrestling fan is awesome. You know, whether you're an amateur fan or a pro fan, I'm looking forward to Nick Nemath's speech, you know, James Beard's, Jimmy Garvin's, and then all the matches that we have coming up. It'd be, you know, well, if we could talk about some well,
absolutely. I was going to mention that. Because not only do we have your marquee match for the NWA Worlds Heavyweight Championship, Colt Cabana is going to face a mystery opponent, right? Yes. Not only do we love when Colt Cabana comes around, but also a mystery opponent is like a wrestling fan's greatest dream, isn't it? Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I think too, I'm anxious to see who they're going to announce, who is his mystery opponent. Because I believe it's somebody that's never been to this event before, based off of what I read on the poster. And I mean, Colt has defended the NWA World Title on an Impact Pro Wrestling show in, like, I want to say 2013 or 14. He wrestled Marshall Scott and defended his NWA World Title here. So he's been a huge staple for this weekend. You know, so I'm super excited to see who his opponent is, because he is fantastic in the ring. Well, yeah, I mean, that's going to be just a great event across the board. And then also, I believe there's some tag team action going to be happening. You want to tell us a little bit about that, or some of the rest of the matches on the card? Absolutely. You know, I think there's just so many fun matches on the card, you know, and you know, this tag team match, it's the Hale twins, who are twin sisters, identical twin sisters, are wrestling against Max Chill and Gable Galileo. That is just, I think, going to be a fantastic match. Both them teams, I think, are the definition of tag team. Like, they're both very experienced tag teams. They're all four fantastic wrestlers. And you know, they're still very early yet in their wrestling career. Right. So I think it's going to be a can't-miss tag match. I think you'll see a lot of newer style wrestling. I think you'll see some throwback to an old style with that team. I think that'll be a real good one. Yeah, absolutely, certainly. And many more matches on the card as well. Many more, I'm sure, to be announced. Are there any others I'm missing on? I got a couple more for you. You know, there's you know, for a throwback to some of these, you know, IPW fans and fans of the past, there's going to be a 6-pack challenge match, and I believe it's elimination. But some of the names in here, the ones that are announced anyway, are all former Impact Pro Wrestling World Heavyweight Champions. Oh my! So, Matty Starr, multi-time Impact Pro Wrestling World Champion. T.S. Aggressor. He's trained so many of us in this wrestling world. Multi-time world champion, getting back in the ring. And then you've got AJ Smooth. You know, his accolades speak for themselves. Multi-time world champion. He'll be in that match. And then the returning Nikki Free, a good friend of mine and a multi-time world champion. Now, 6-pack challenge. There's 2 more that'll still be announced, and be on the lookout for the announcement. So I'm looking forward to see who is going to be coming back for that match. That should be a fantastic one. I mean, certainly that right off the bat, as you start telling me about that, I mean that. No offense to your match, that starts to get me real excited about this event. And then, like you were talking about with the Hale twins and the Worlds title and the IPW title is being defended, isn't it?
Yes, IPW title. The big picture. It's his second reign as World Heavyweight Champion. And he is the longest reigning Impact Pro Wrestling World Champion that we've ever had.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, I want to say he was almost 2 years he was world champion before he was defeated by Bryce Jordan. And big picture, the current world champion, he's taken on Jimmy Wild. Now, Jimmy Wild, as you've probably seen, he's a fantastic athlete, and this will be... he hasn't been world champion, so it'll be a tough match for him. But for me personally, I would really like to see him defeat the big picture. And don't get me wrong, the big picture's no slouch.
No.
But it's a huge matchup for Jimmy Wild here for the World Heavyweight title. So I'm anxious to see those two get in the ring. They both got their own style. You know, big picture is rough and tough. And then Jimmy Wild, he'll come at you from everywhere. So I think he's my pick to go all the way and win the world title.
Well, and how can you bet against an underdog? You know, especially the 25th anniversary, being back here in Waterloo, something just feels right about, you know, it's time to crown a new champion. And I think that's something that everybody in attendance is going to be on the lookout for. If they have gotten their all access passes, if they're coming to the show, I mean, that's important, right? Yeah. We got to be getting those coming to the show. What else are you excited for on this weekend? I'm sure that you've got your all access pass, don't you? I do have my all access pass, and that's something too, you know, and then I'll get back to the match here. That's something too, just for this weekend. I think the best way to go is to buy the all access pass, because that gets you into everything. You know, the induction ceremony, just the social. I mean, you can name, there's so many lists of events that is happening here at the Gable Museum for the Trago Stez Hall of Fame weekend. But you definitely, just the entire weekend, there's softball games, trivia, autograph signings. There's so much that goes into this weekend that I think any wrestling fan will want to be a part of. So I think, all access pass is the way to go. And then just as far as, another match too that I'm looking forward. Coming out of retirement, or not retirement, but he hasn't been in the ring in a while, is Malice. And he's wrestling a guy named Ugly. And one more time, they're going to go at each other. For many years, they wrestled at Impact Pro Wrestling used to do shows at Forte in Des Moines. And Malice and Ugly had steel cage matches, hardcore matches. I mean, they wrestled each other so many times there. And I think it's great that we're getting them on the 25th anniversary. And I just, with the two of them, I think it's going to be crazy to see what might happen for that match. It could be hardcore, cage, what you name it. You never know what it's going to be. But I could tell you it'd be a can't miss match. Malice versus Ugly. That's one that I'm really looking forward to. Well, and certainly I think everyone else is going to be looking forward to that too. I was after you said that, I remembered that I've seen a lot of people on Facebook talking about that, about how, my God, I can't believe this is happening again. We're actually going to get to see this at the 25th anniversary show. There's just so much to look forward to when it comes to that Hall of Fame show that weekend. And what, I guess, what are you preparing for most for that weekend, other than your match? Are you preparing as a fan at all to just allow the events to wash over you? Yeah, I think you never lose your fandom. I wrestled today, but man, I'm still a fan. I think I'm just preparing for celebration. I think it's just going to be a great weekend
of celebration for both the Dan Gable Museum, the Trago Styles Hall of Fame, and 25 years of Impact Pro Wrestling. I know earlier in the day, Impact Pro Wrestling wise, they're going to have like a get together at the Waterloo Convention Center, which is a great place for the events and the matches. That'll be from 1 to 3 o'clock, and then I just think as a fan, like you said, just taking it all in as far as, hey, this is really a weekend that we all come together to celebrate wrestling. And I think it's great, here in Iowa that we get to do that. And I think it's something that fans from everywhere, from all across the country, come to enjoy. So it's really been cool to see it grow. So yeah, just going to take it all in, and I'm fired up about it right now.
I can understand that. I am as well. So we'll definitely be looking forward to that with the Hall of Fame weekend. James, I do want to respect your time, so we'll get this wrapped up here. But do you have any closing thoughts as we come to the end of this interview? Like I said, the Hall of Fame's coming up. I'm sure that you've been having some good matches lately. I just saw you had a match within the last couple of months on Cage Match I saw. So you're staying in shape. You're ready for this.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to celebrate with everybody. And when I mean celebrate, I mean just celebrate wrestling. It's going to be a tough matchup for the NWA Worlds title. So I'm going to be excited to participate in that match. I'm really looking forward to watching my brothers and sisters wrestle. And I'm looking forward to see all of our friends that make it here for that weekend. So, there's a lot of fun events going on. As far as like the Impact Pro Wrestling stuff, it starts at 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. We'll have some afternoon events, live matches. You never know who's going to participate in those. Meet and greets, photo ops in the ring. And then we have the matches at night starting at 7 o'clock. So, and there's so many matches that we'd already talked about on that show. And I just think I'm so pumped to get to participate in this weekend. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun for anybody who decides to come and join us. And really looking forward to it.
The energy is radiating in this room from wrestling fan to wrestling fan. Yeah. So thank you so much for your time, James. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
This has been a great time. For Between the Ropes, I've been Hunter Dietz for James Jeffries, and this has been Between the Ropes, an On the Go Media podcast production.